Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattvabodho Bhidiyate. I want to take us through a overview of what has taken place during this course. So this word tattva is reality and bodha is knowledge. So we are gaining knowledge of the reality. And the way that this book has attempted to demonstrate that is really in about 3 or 4 verses. I thought about this, maybe 4 verses. And so the first significant verse, it started out by saying, what is this book about? And it said it's consisting of 3 parts. So the whole book is divided into 3 parts. And the first part was sadhana chatushtaya. So this is the fourfold readiness that is required to more or less, right, be ready to hear this without adding your own additions or subtractions, right? Being able to listen and to pay attention and to really just take it on board and think about it rather than in the light of the knowledge. That means you become the subject, you become the spotlight under the inquiry of the book rather than the world. So the usual way about doing things is, we say, this is inquiry is required. But then we say, use this knowledge to kind of look at the world in this knowledge, in this light. But it's really bringing that down to yourself, the thinker, the inquirer. So even the inquirer is under the spotlight. Rather than using the inquirer to look out there externally, the inquirer turns on itself and asks the questions in the light of the knowledge. What is the nature of this inquirer? What about this inquirer that is modifying? And what is it about this inquirer that is invariably constant? And the second section is, it says that after going through this fourfold sadhana, then, so that one who's ready is called an adhikari, and they are endowed with these fourfold sadhanas. And what will that give? What is then that enabling one to do? It is to perform tattva viveka. That is to apply the method between satya mithya through the analysis that we have done. And what will this tattva viveka do? This discriminative inquiry between satya and mithya, the invariable presence and the changing modifications in your experience. It was going to give moksha sadhana. It's going to give liberation while living. And who is this? What specifically does an adhikari, that means that one who is ready, what specifically, according to the text, do they have that enables them to do tattva viveka? Then the next verse states it is nitya anitya vastu viveka. So again, this is, see, initially, you may not know what this permanent is. Nitya means permanent, but the person's intelligent enough to recognize there has to be something that is invariable. They may not quite quantify what it is or describe it, but it's still sharp enough, the intellect's sharp enough to recognize the value, the real value of objects and what can they really give me and not give me. Therefore, the second is also viragaha. So this is the release from giving value onto the world that it doesn't deserve. So this is common because in the spiritual world, especially for a seeker, if you look at it from their standpoint, everything seems valuable, right? Every video, every book, every teaching, every system seems precious. It's like, I found the thing. And so they end up just jumping from one thing onto the next, onto the next, onto the next, onto the next. It just is no stopping. So thereby one remains an eternal seeker within Advaita Vedanta. So even in Advaita Vedanta, one can still say, no, I still need to experience this consciousness. I need to kind of like find a meditation to really get in touch with consciousness. Well, wait a minute. Experience consciousness? So then who's conscious right now? What's over there while you're having this meditation and what's over here? It's the same consciousness. So how can you experience consciousness? What are you going to experience over there that is not over here? You see this thinking where they're at? And you explain this to them and they're not quite connecting. They say, no, I understand. But then secretly, still they jump into and they try to experience consciousness in some meditation. Come on. So, and what can you do about this? There's actually very little things you can do about this, except just, time is, of utter essence for this fella to mature this mind up, to kind of release this need for more or something different, or no, this is not good enough, I need to listen somewhere else. But what's happening is the mind is not really discerning, it's not looking deeper into what's being said. Rather, the easy way out is it says, no, this is not good enough, it doesn't sound good, I'm just going to go elsewhere and maybe that's going to sound better. So it's looking for new words. You see this? It's got passion for words. And what does it say here? Viragaha. Absence of longing for more words, for more perspectives, for more teachings, for more ideas, for more systems, for more philosophy. Therefore, the person, rather than jumping and hopping from one to the next, to the next, to the next, they look at what is provided right now and let's extract the depth of what is being offered to me in this moment, rather than staying at the surface level, just kind of like getting, like peeking through the door. Oh, okay, here's the playing ground, here's the field of options, and you want to be sort of informed rather than transformed. So the question is, do I want to be informed or do I want to be transformed? And therefore, an adhikari is the one who is tired, literally tired or exhausted from being informed left and right and left. They just say, hey, I want to change my life right now. I want to have my experience transformed, not tomorrow. I want to understand this whole thing in the light of it. I want to understand what's going on in this moment, here and now. Forget about tomorrow, here and now. The only question on their mind is, am I living this here and now, or am I just learning and being more informed about more Sanskrit words, more ideas, more concepts, more elucidations, or do I just want to just release all of that and just get to know and free myself in this moment? This is a huge perspective of one that has maturity, who values transformation, and the one who simply cannot let go of this idea of intellectualizing the whole thing. It's all God, it's all Brahman, it's just reality, we're all one. But actually the contradictory behaviors are in this person's witnessed as seeking for more videos, seeking for more books, seeking for more concepts, seeking for more teachers, unable to simply stop and rest and abide in the lap of Ishvara, because the truth is right here, right now. And therefore, the person hopefully has somewhat kind of virtues, shamadhi, shatka. They have, their mind is together, which is kind of exemplary of what we do, the little meditation before starting, right? Their mind is able to focus and come back to a single point of rest. It doesn't wander. You're able to take control of your monkey mind and bring it back to a single point of focus, whereby you are the master of your mind rather than the mind being the master of you. And this requires some and consistent training, because the nature of the mind is to hop left, hop right. It doesn't want to be right here and right now. Now, if the mind cannot be right here and right now, then how can I possibly hold the intelligence right here and right now? How can I hold that knowledge right here and right now, when the mind, the basic instrument because of which this knowledge is ascertained firmly, cannot be here and now? It has a tendency to wander off into the past, what happened yesterday, what happened a week ago, or has the tendency to wander off, hey, what's coming after this course now that it's finishing? Hey, what comes next? Hey, what else can we listen to? It's just with the teaching, and he wants to understand the teaching, the depth of what is happening. And so it's obsessed with bringing this down into the moment. This is a qualified mind. And this one, who has this much maturity, we say they are a mumukshu, they are truly qualified for liberation. There are many people who are wanting liberation and talking about liberation, but just because I talk about starting a business, in fact, many of us want to start a business, but how many actually start a business? How many actually sacrifice years of their life and sit down and learn about the marketing, the principles of advertising, the principles of testing what's working and what's not? That takes years of consistency and commitment. Like that with that one who desires liberation is exactly the same. Many want liberation, but how many are truly willing to say, God, if it takes to stop my heart right now, if that's what it takes to attain liberation, go. In this second, stop my heart right now. I'm not afraid. Not afraid because I want you so much in this moment right now. There's no fear. All you can think about is God. You're obsessed with the truth. You're so deeply established in the value of liberation that nothing else matters more than attaining the truth, which is here and now. And so you don't have any problem. You say, if it takes for me to die today, not tomorrow, right now while I'm doing the class, in this second, I'm not afraid. Take my life right now. That kind of strength, that kind of commitment, that kind of devotion is what it takes to truly be an adhikari. We're not talking about a little child who talks about, I want liberation. Yeah, it's all Brahman, it's all Ishvara, it's all God. But if you listen to this person, it's like a little child who's just speaking intellectual concepts, pouring out of their mind, but there's no real devotion. There's no real commitment. There's no real seriousness to attain something that is so precious. And therefore, this preciousness starts to be refined through the course of time. We call this maturity, to the point where the person is able to stand on their own 2 feet and they say, you know what? I don't need my wife. I don't need my husband. I don't need my parents. I don't need the world. I'm going to do this between me and the teacher, and that's it. It's not about someone holding my hand. It's not about someone providing me a foundation for support. I'm going to do this on my own. I don't need anyone. It is between me, the guru, and God, period. And in this conviction, in this strength, the person walks this journey of going through the program because they want what is so precious. This is a real adhikari, not a joker who puts up a face and talks wisdom, but behind how they live, it's 1 foot in the world, 1 foot in spirituality. All commitment is on God alone. That kind of commitment is required. We have another beautiful story where the crazy guru takes a student by the barrel of water. The student looks inside. The guru says, no, look inside. You see there's some special things inside the barrel. The student looks and he pushes the student's head inside and he doesn't want to let him go. And all the student can think of is what? Oh, I'm hungry. Oh, what's 1 + 1? Let's think about mathematics. Let's think about language. Let's think about how many words have I memorized today? No, the only thing that the student thinks about is I want 1 breath, nothing else. There's no family for that person in that moment. There's no children. There's no, my grandchildren are coming tomorrow. Oh, my husband. Oh, my wife. There's none of that. It's just, I want this 1 single breath. I want God, period. It is that kind of commitment, that kind of dedication, that kind of, firm, non-moving, unparalleled devotion and yearning for the truth that is required for this knowledge to take place. That was the first section, which mentions who is truly qualified for this knowledge. Then it goes into the second major verse and it starts right up front. It says, who are you? What are you or who are you? It doesn't really matter whether you say who or what. And it says, Atmakaha. What's the nature of this I, person that's present and true and available to oneself? Who is this person? What's the nature of this person? And it says, well, no, you are, first of all, not the 3 bodies. You're not your mind. You're not your body, your thoughts. You're not this inquirer who's listening right now. You're not this teacher who's, speaking about this knowledge. You're the invariable presence. That's always true in the present in the past, the present, and the future. It says you're not your habits or your your emotions or your desires or your fancies, or I've got a desire to attain. This is all fine, but there is a certain discernment in the presence of this desire, which there's nothing wrong with it. There is a one that is independent of these desires. And you're not the physical body. So I'm not this aging, declining person. Brain cells are reducing by the day. And there's, whatever, the system kind of just keeps on degrading. The weakness of the muscles, all of this is very natural. So there's a certain shock absorber just by hearing, oh, so really I'm, not really all of these things that are going downhill by the day. And it says you're also not the 5 levels of experience. And this is another way of communicating the 3 bodies, just in a different language. Some of us like the 3 bodies. Some of us prefer this more kind of like Annamaya Kosha, right? I'm not the the muscles, the bones, the aging, and so on. I'm not the prana. I'm not the energy. So, right, I'm not that low energy or high energy, or I'm not the emotional or capacities, nor the doubter. I'm neither the and the inquirer who's thinking about all of this, neither the happiness, because we often equate ourselves to I am happiness. You're not happiness. Happiness is just one manifestation that comes in time. What was there before happiness? I was. What's there during happiness? I am. What's after happiness? I still am. So therefore, happiness, though it is an indicator of your nature, it is not you. It's just a manifestation of happiness. Because see, depending on how old you are is how much your dopamine your brain can release. Therefore, depending on your age, determines your happiness, depending on what you know, depending on your environment. All of these things are determining what happiness you're able to feel. So whatever has a dependent reality is not I. And happiness, on how many variables is happiness dependent upon? Number 1, on time. On number 2, on age. Number 3, on what you know. Number 4, on who's this person in front of me. So many variables, therefore I cannot be happiness either. And then it says you are the sakshi of the 3 states. That means you are the invariable one through and through, in whose presence the waker, the dreamer, and the deep sleeper are recognized. And then it says, now having heard who you are not, then who am I? And it says you are that one who obtains in the 3 periods of time. Your body was very different last year than it is right now, but what is true last year equally to what is true now and will be equally true a year from now is this invariable I am. It says you are consciousness, this existence which is true in all 3 periods of time, whose nature is consciousness and which is not bound by anything. That means nothing can go over your awareness, because everything is in the presence of awareness. Nothing goes outside the boundaries of awareness. Everything is in the presence of awareness. Now you say, well, I'm not aware of what's behind me. Yeah, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about, that's just within the range of your senses. If I were to look behind me, that thing which I don't see now would be in the presence of my awareness. So we're not talking about the range of your senses. Then it says, having heard who you are and who you are not, it still doesn't explain away how did this world of multiplicity comes. Because if everything originates from one reality, then how do you explain the manys? And this manys is explained in the verse whereby it says there are 24 factors to creation. And what are these 24 factors of creation? So it basically says, in power, in the presence of consciousness, there is a capacity to manifest the universe. And this capacity is intelligence. Now, there's a very nice example in the Chandogya Upanishad, where the father explains to his son, Shvetaketu, if you take salt and you drop it inside water, can you see that salt inside water? No, but it's all throughout the water. If you ask, where is that salt? It's throughout. Can you see it? No, it's invisible, but it's all throughout the water. Now, is this salt, once it's inside the water, is it intrinsic to H2O? Has it now become permanent to H2O? No. In fact, if you evaporate the water, then what's going to be left is the salt. So even though I don't see this intelligence, in the presence of consciousness, this intelligence is all throughout. Where is this intelligence? It's all throughout consciousness. But is this intelligence intrinsic to consciousness? The answer is no. Because if intelligence were to be intrinsic to consciousness, then you would be constantly intelligent, like to the fullest capacity. And that is not true. We have the ability to have no thoughts. We have the ability to be very intelligent, or just to rest in your presence. And therefore, the 24 factors, which come from this capacity to manifest the universe called Maya, it said were first the 5 elements, right? And from these, so that's the first 5. From these 5 elements, the sattvic portion, what comes? The 5 organs of perception. They're not organs, physical organs. They are faculties which enable perception to happen. So don't think of physical organs like a physical eye or physical hand, physical, right? It's faculties by which physical seeing is possible, right? When you attach the eye, you attach the instrument, and you can take this eye out, but even though I can't see, I still have the capacity to see. So if someone who's blind, you give them a physical instrument, right, and you attach it, then the capacity to see now is starting to receive data through the physical organ. But that capacity was there all along, just waiting for the physical instrument to attach itself onto. So the 5 elements are the first. From the sattvic portion comes the 5 organs of perception. When you add the sattva of space, air, fire, water, earth, you get the inner instrument, which is 4, which consists of memory, consists of buddhi, consists of manas, and consists of the eye sense. So that's 5 plus 5 plus 4, that's now 14. Then from the raja aspect of these 5 elements, so rajas from space, air, fire, water, and earth, you get capacity to grasp, to speak, procreate, right, excrete, and walk, locomotion. And when you add them all together, rajas of space, fire, water, and earth, plus, you get 5 pranas. So therefore, 14 plus 5 equals 24. So these are the 24 principles expounded. And then it moves on to, having heard what are the qualifications to enter this text, who you are and who you are not, and explaining how the many comes from the one, then the natural question arises, who is that one who has understood all of this, which the book has spoken of thus far? And that one is called the Jivan Mukta. And the Jivan Mukta, we understood, is one who understands the implied meaning of Tattvamasi. How is it now that this individual, and there's this big world, right? There's a difference. But how do I reconcile this individual and this big world? Where's the connection between me, the individual, and the intelligence from which everything comes, that sustains all forms, who presents these orders in which these forms participate in, and there's a cause-effect relationship operated? How am I this total intelligence? And the answer was Tattvamasi, you are that. Well, how can I be that? Well, I cannot be that through Vachyartha, I cannot be that through direct meaning. I have to be that through Lakshyartha, the implied meaning. Therefore, I, the nature of I, like 3 plus 1 on one side and 6 minus 2 on the other side, both resolve to 4. So in other words, it looks different. The jiva looks different to Ishvara, but if you resolve it, both of them cannot be without Sat, because they both exist. And they both neither can be without a conscious being, because you cannot think of intelligence, which is operable and present at every mithya level, organizing those particles together. You can't think of that intelligence unless it's in the presence of a conscious being. Intelligence inert, it doesn't work. It has to be conscious in order to hold H and hold O, hold one sodium, one chlorine to produce sodium chloride. You have to have consciousness in which this intelligence operates for this intelligence to hold and sustain this entire universe and 24/7. Therefore, both sides resolve to Sat and Chit, existence and awareness. Then a question comes, which is what this session is about, is what is the point of moksha? And the point is to recognize this process of coming back. And the question is then, why is there a coming back? And who comes back, right? Does awareness come back? No, it doesn't come back. Awareness is everywhere. How can that which is all pervasive come back? So obviously when we say I come back, what is this I referring to now that we know it's not referring to awareness? It can't be referring to the body because it's a different body. The body is changing in this slide. There's no question of this body being there. Is it the mind that comes back? Not really. What specifically comes back? If I ask you, what comes back? Who was this person called Raj? Who, I don't know who it is. Who is this person, that now has, what about Raj? Suppose, this person is called Raj. What about them has come back to produce Andre? What specifically has come back to produce Andre? Their skin color? No. What, Lorena?
Sukshma Sharira?
Sukshma Sharira. Okay. So in the Upanishads, does someone else want to answer? What exactly comes back? Or not comes, but just continues. What exactly continues? That's a better word.
Causal body.
Causal body. Now, this is actually slightly better. Lorena is not incorrect. One Upanishad says that your Sukshma Sharira takes on a new physical body. However, putting that aside, when David says causal body, this is much better because what specifically continues is those very impressions that were developed by Raj, those very habits and inclinations that were developed by Raj. So, for example, you get born, and does your mother or father say, hey, Julie, be inquisitive, be inquisitive, be inquisitive. You're going to be inquisitive. You're going to be inquisitive. You're going to be very curious. You're going to love knowledge, love knowledge. Do they say that? No. And yet there is a person who is born, who is inquisitive and loves knowledge, implying what? That this personality trait was already developed before. Now, just because I cannot see what this before is, just because I can't see that salt in the water or cause preceding this individual or this personality, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Because we have to explain away how, by the presence of the birth of the individual, there comes a body who is inculcated with a personality which is totally different from their siblings, and yet they have this. Where did it come from? Because anything in the universe, you have to always attribute its cause. The personality is an effect. Where did its cause come from? This is the idea of, quote, coming back, or more better, continuity. Now, before getting into the detail, the question is, what happens to the wise person's consequences? It wants to say karma pala or karmas, but what happens to their consequences, which are supposed to give a new body? Okay. So what happens to that process, which is supposed to give a new body? I'll explain what that process is without getting into too much technical details. What is it exactly that happens that doesn't make the wise person come back into a physical form? He wants to ask this question. And the verse starts with Brahma eva aham. So by immediate knowledge, one becomes free from all karmas. One becomes free from that process which gives a new body. Now, this all is explained in the next verse. It starts with karmani Kati Vidhani, and then it's got Agami, Sanchita, and Prarabdha. What are these all three that the wise person is released from? And it starts with Agami karma. It starts with Jnana Utpati Anantaram. So this is the next verse now. Jnana Utpati Anantaram. So let's talk about Agami karma. So when I say the word karma here, I'm talking specifically about the results of your actions, not action, because karma always has two words. One is action and two is result or consequence of a prior action that you put. So if you put hard work into building a company, then what kind of results are you going to have in the future? Well, you're going to have profits and you're going to make a turnover, and all of this is karma. This is all karma pala. So what is this Agami karma? Agami means future. You use your free will all day long. And what happens when you use your free will? You make decisions and you respond to situations. Okay? So by the use of free will, these two get exercised all day long. From the waking to the sleep, every single day, we have to make decisions, where to go, how to get there, what to say, what not to say, who to meet, who not to meet, whether I should say something or not say something. Even to not say something, does that relieve you from consequences? No. Even to not say something is also communication, which the other person will interpret, and that is going to come back to you, whether it was sort of a silent treatment or whether it was really appropriate to not answer in that moment. So that's going to determine what that person or how that relationship will evolve. But either way, whatever you do, you can't help it. You are always producing or forcing the world to respond. Is this clear so far? Always forcing the world to respond. We can't help it. Okay. And this response produces what's called unseen results. Why is it unseen? In fact, all Agami means is unseen because it's future. It's not here now. So it's because not everything gets returned immediately. If you do build a business, for example, that's going to be all of those benefits you're going to experience. They're coming in the future. They're not here right now. Therefore, it is unseen. And this unseen, that means what is yet to come, is called Agami karma. Okay. So this unseen, it may fructify or may not fructify in this life. We don't know. But either way, it does fructify because that's how the system is set up. That's how the law is. So look at this. Suppose that you fire, well, actually not you, but suppose a fella fires an arrow at another person. Okay. So we fire an arrow and we want to kill, right? I want to kill the other person. Now, suppose that I fire an arrow and I don't look once I fire. I know that the arrow is going to hit him, but I quickly run away to deny that the whole situation has happened. Does that relieve me? Suppose now I run away so far and I quickly catch a plane and I go to the other side of the world and I buy a new house and I get married and children are now there and I forget about the whole thing. Does that life, does that prior issue of firing the arrow suddenly relieve me from the consequences just because I didn't see it? So even if I didn't really see that it really killed him, that means there's no chance of guilt, remember? Because I didn't see. I just denied. No, I missed. But actually your intention was to kill. But you say, no, I missed. And then you do this whole thing in the future. Does it suddenly relieve you from the consequences of having done that? You may think so, but the system is made such that there is no respite. There is no chance to free yourself. So sometime, whether in this life or the continuity for that next person, whoever that next person is, the consequences will come back in some way or the other. That is just how the system works. It's a cause-effect relationship, like anywhere else, anywhere in the world, whatever happens. So suppose someone comes to you with a black eye. What's the first question you say? what happened. So the black eye is the effect. Instantly, you want to trace it back to a cause. Now, the black eye for this fellow who shot the arrow may not occur in this life, but it's going to occur some lifetimes later. Now, suppose lifetimes later, someone asks, what happened? Can that fella explain what happened? Wherever that fella is? No, but something did happen. So it doesn't matter whether one remembers or not, the system is made such that it's going to deliver an appropriate return on your investment. The investment was not so wise, but there is a return on investment either way. So the question is now, what happens to this agami karma for a wise person? This was agami general, but what about for a wise person? So look at this. When the wise person understands that self is completely, utterly free from this instrument which fires the arrows into the world, the instrument, the as though confinement, when I say as though confinement, I'm talking about the as though confinement which fired the arrow, does that leave when you recognize that self is free from the body mind? Does that leave? No, it doesn't. So the as though confinement continues to fire arrows into the world, whether they are Cupid arrows of love or whether they are arrows of fire, it doesn't matter. However, because the body cannot but produce consequences, does that relieve the wise person in this life from experiencing the results of their actions that they put into the world? For example, the wise person blesses someone, or they create an ashram, or they say something accidentally and they hurt someone. Are they relieved from the consequences from that agami that is to be returned in this life? No, because see, can you ever have a perfect mind? No. Does a wise person have a perfect mind? No, absolutely not. Just to get to the class, how many ants did you kill? How many bacteria did you kill? Thousands. We don't see it. Just like that arrow, just because I don't see who got killed doesn't relieve me from committing, doesn't relieve this body from having committed that. So in that same way, the jnani still inflicts pain without even trying to do so, because by the time one has gotten to this knowledge, you have already gone through an adhikari state. To be an adhikari, you've already developed your compassion, your kindness, your mindfulness. So it's not like being wise makes you compassionate, but getting there, getting to the knowledge, you've already minimized the kind of papam that you produce into this world. You've already minimized the kind of harsh words that we say in this world. Therefore, despite the jnani's body still hurting accidentally, maybe someone's going to say something prematurely. Maybe you tell a wise person a story of yours, and they're like, yeah, and they hurt you because they're not listening to you. Maybe they're just busy, right? And they don't intend to hurt you, but they hurt you and you feel hurt, right? So still their body and their mind will produce this, right, cause-effect relationship in the world, and that will be returned back to the body-mind, although it is at its minimum. Why? Because they have gone through an adhikari process. They have gone through working on their mind, working on their thoughts, working on their deeds and their desires, and accommodating the environment. Okay. Of course, you're going to ask now, okay, so then does this not produce a new body? We'll see soon. Because agami, that's unfructified, always comes back as a new body. So isn't this going to now produce a new body? We will see this soon. Okay. Now the next verse, it says, Sanchita karma kim. What is Sanchita karma? So agami, what is agami in one short word? In one word, agami.
Unseen.
Unseen, perfect. That's all we need. Future, unseen, I like unseen. Okay. Next is Sanchita. So the question comes, where does this agami unseen go? Where does it go? Until it's fructified, where does it, not that it's a place, please understand, it's no place called Sanchita. We often think, where is this place of where what is yet to come, where is it stored? It's there. We just give it a name called Sanchita. So all of those unseen results that are yet to come to you, we call that place Sanchita. So think of this as a bank account. What happens in your bank account? You put money. What kind of money? The kind of notes that are reflective of you, the kind of actions you put into the world is the kind of notes you give to your bank account called Sanchita. If you're putting very desirable and pleasant actions into the world, then the consequences will be pleasant coins in your bank account. If I hurt, if I cheat, if I lie, then the consequences, what kind of coins will they be? There will be those coins that reflect those vices. There will be coins that are dirty in nature, just a metaphor here. So your Sanchita then becomes collected. Sanchita means well collected. Why is it well collected? Because it doesn't spill onto anyone else. Imagine you do something that's pleasant, and those pleasant results go onto your friend. You're like, hey, I want it to go to me. Or you do something unwise or stupid, and it accidentally spills onto, someone that's dear to you. You'll be like, oh, this could be both a blessing and a curse. So it's well collected. It's localized to the original doer. That's what well collected means. And Sanchita, what it says is, because this creation is cyclical, there was always a doer that existed since beginningless time. So this means they were always putting agami karma, they were always generating new agami karma from the beginning. And this agami karma could have never quite be exhausted in one life. Even in this life, forget about previous, take this life, you can build temples and donations and thousands of lives you can save. But suppose you're just busy, you have to go to work tomorrow, right, for the next 20 years. Can you receive all of those pleasant results? Are you available in the world to receive all of those pleasant results? Most likely not, because you're too busy working. Therefore, it goes into Sanchita. So for this reason, if you look at your Sanchita, you cannot ever exhaust it. Because to try to exhaust or to kind of make yourself available to receive those consequences, to try to exhaust or work out your stuff to enjoy, what does that involve? It involves action. But every time you act, what does that do? It produces a new consequence, which produces a new agami, which fills up your Sanchita. So the more I try to exhaust, see, this is in yoga, common thing, not all, but in some sects, they try to just not do anything, thinking they're going to exhaust their Sanchita. You're only exhausting one fraction that's assigned to this life. You're not exhausting the total Sanchita. It's impossible because there was never a beginning to this creation. It was always running. Therefore, the amount of Sanchita that is yet to give you different bodies of an ant, of a fly, of a monkey, of a chimp, of a male, of a female is infinite, can't ever exhaust it. No amount of good work is going to exhaust it. It's just going to fill it up, because to do good work is to what? Fill it up with good consequences, which is it's going to give you a better limited body. We call this Deva. I'm going to have a Deva body, going to heaven, but still it is limitation. Okay. Now, next verse, it says prarabdha karma, prarabdha. So one word, agami, unseen. One word, Sanchita, well collected.
With the agami karma, it says here that it's by the body of the wise man after the dawn of knowledge. So is that different from Sanchita? It's not assumed that you have reached a certain level in Sanchita, but in agami you have?
So the dawn of, so the agami, in simple, it's kind of a confusing verse. I remember reading that. It just means that agami for the wise person continues just like it does for an unwise person. That's all it wants to say, because your body is still doing things in this world. It's still, liberating people. It's reading the knowledge. It's, working. It's producing results. So whether it's dawn of knowledge or whether it's before dawn of knowledge, hey, either way, what are you getting? What are you putting into the field? Unseen results. Next verse, prarabdha karma. What do we say about sanchita? Well collected. How much? Infinite. Out of that infinite, what happens? One portion is taken, and that one portion is called prarabdha. And that one portion is what gives this birth. Now, just explain this in a little bit using a kitchen example. Suppose you have a pot, and this pot is under high pressure. You know those high pressure pots? They want to release their steam. Now, what kind of steam will come out? What kind of a smell of steam will come out? It's going to be consistent with the kind of food you have put inside that pot. Now, what determines the kind of food you put inside the pot? Did your husband tell you what food? Well, maybe. But suppose you make a decision on your own. I want to put carrots, and what else do they put in pots nowadays?
Lentils.
Okay, lentils. You can tell I don't cook, right? So tomatoes, I say something else, and lentils. So in other words, the kind of foods that I like, the kind of foods that I'm accustomed to, those foods I'm going to put inside the pot. And therefore, what kind of smell is this high pressure? Because the pot cannot contain all of that. What kind of smell is going to come out? The smell consistent with my likes and dislikes. And therefore, that smell is called prarabdha. That's called one section of whatever's inside sanchita is going to come out, and it's going to create a personality with inclinations that are consistent with what has been developed before, that are going to be consistent with the kind of habits, the kind of inclinations that have been developed before in whatever other body it is. So if it's going to be a consistent smell, a consistent habit, then does that not imply that's going to set up a general inclination of the kind of people you get attracted to, the kind of decisions and how you make decisions and how you think about things? Doesn't it mean that if one portion that is consistent with sanchita, if that portion is to have certain inclinations, does that not imply that that person, that baby, when it grows enough, is going to start thinking in a general trajectory, is going to start moving towards a general kind of person in their life, is going to start being attracted to a certain type of personality in life? You see this? So it's not like prarabdha makes you, hey, you're going to suffer, because you've shot that arrow in the last life. In this life, you're going to suffer. It's not like prarabdha kind of sets up these markers in your life where by the time you reach 5 or 12, suddenly you're a murderer, right? In fact, I just read in Melbourne, this girl who's 12 years old, she ran away from home 250 plus minus times, and she stabbed a woman to death. 12 years old, this girl. So much, her mind is so disturbed at such a young age to have been rejected or ran away 250 times away from home carers. So this tells you that there is some unresolved pressure that is expressing itself and causing oneself to think about other people in a way that I don't see any value in you. I can just cause trouble. I can kill a person. I can, think about how you are all low people. Like, where is this coming from? Do all kids have this? No, but some have these inclinations. And therefore, because prarabdha, inclinations come, it makes you, the individual, have a general trajectory in your life according to whatever Raj in the previous life has done. So if they were very interested in thinking, they were a thinker, they just wanted to think about things, or they were just sort of aloof and didn't really care, like whatever goes, lazy, then that gets passed on because it's the kind of food you're putting inside your pot. And so the smell that comes out is consistent with the food inside the sanchita. Therefore, the question comes now, does that not imply that free will is highly limited by this trajectory of your prarabdha, of your inclinations? Absolutely. Absolutely it is. So despite being given free will, by what is it caused to be, what causes it to think in a certain way? Those inclinations called prarabdha karma. Therefore, even though the person says, no, I have free will, but in the name of what is that free will being exercised? It's being exercised in the name of those inclinations. However, it doesn't mean entirely that you don't have free will. There is freedom to it, because what happens is, suppose that you need to find a job, and that job requires you to be honest. But your inclinations that you came with are to be dishonest and to always find a cheating method to get your way. But now you say, so this job has a strict regulation or a strict process for hiring, and I have to violate my inclination to lie, and I have to be honest. So what are you doing with your free will? You have to use your free will to comply with the new environmental demands, and therefore to violate your past inclinations. Therefore, by this process, just a little example, it shows us that even if you're given free will, and despite it being conditioned by prarabdha, just to be in a new environment causes you to violate your own past inclinations, because you have to survive. I can't afford to be found out that I'm lying to you. I have to now get into this job by being honest. I'm using my free will to violate my inclinations to lie. I have to now use my free will to continue being honest. And how long do you work? You work not just for one day. You have to keep on being honest, being honest, being honest. Within 1 year, what happens? You've developed an entirely new inclination. Therefore, next life round, no longer do I have this inclination to lie. What kind of inclination do I have now? Inclination to be honest. So therefore, yes, free will is pulled down by the amygdala, because that's the fight or flight mechanism. It is pulled down by your culture, by your parents, by your education, by your salary. But at the same time, there is the chance to work hard and resist that pull of the prior factors and make a new course of a new decision. And that decision is entirely up to you. You can choose to go by your old patterns, or you can say, it's very hard to develop a proper, some skill that's useful, but I choose to stay at it. I choose to take 5 minutes a day to exercise, just 5 minutes a day. I know it's very hard, so you don't say 10 or 30 minutes. You just say 5 minutes a day, because my free will wants to do what? It doesn't want to exercise because that's easier. But you can cause it to say, hey, let's just make this simple. And you make this simple, and next time around, it becomes much easier, much easier, much easier. And within 3 months, you've already developed a brand new samskara, a brand new impression. Yes, it's also said that prarabdha chooses your parents, chooses your nationality, chooses your state of mind, of course. But the parents and the nationality, I can't really prove that directly, although that is what we do mention, right? So we can't really see this, but this is what the Vedas mentions. It does select your nationality, the skin color, your gender, everything that you experience in this life, the way that you are as a person is this product of prarabdha karma. So this is all included. How do you prove that your life is not predetermined and that you do have choice? How do you prove that? Because a lot of us argue, it's like, no, I don't have choice. It's all set up and it's all meant to be and so on. Well, first of all, you just look at your life right now. Is your life right now, is it independent of all of the choices and decisions you made in the last 30 or 40 years? Is it independent, or is it completely dependent? Your life today, the person that you are, the kind of thinker you are, what you are surrounding yourself by, the kind of furniture you have, who your friends are, where you go, where you don't go, everything is not a product of just having made a decision in one day. That decision is a culmination of all of the mini decisions you've been making for the last 20 or 30 years. And therefore, it sculpted you into the person that you are in this moment. And 30 years, or say 10 years from now, because 30 years from now, some of us won't be alive, but suppose 5 or 10 years from now, who are you going to be then? Your body. Who's your body and mind going to be then? The exact same person who you are now as a sculptor, plus all of the decisions and actions you will have done to guide your life every single day until that moment 10 years from now. So therefore, the person right now is a sculpture of all of the things and all of the decisions you've done in the last 30 years, 30 or 40 years on a consistent daily basis, who has now sculpted this individual who is interested in Advaita Vedanta and not something else. And who's going to be there 10 years from now? The exact same person who's here now with the same thoughts. On top of it, the refinements made through your free will that are done with or without hard work that have sculpted that person in 10 years from now. So this process continues, one life after another. One sculpture continues to be influenced not only of its prarabdha karma, but also in the name of its free will. And so this mixture, prarabdha karma and free will, constantly work together. Now, what the Veda says is, just because you're comfortable with understanding this cause-effect relationship works for 80 years, does it mean that it's locked to 80 years? Just because I'm comfortable and I can only see 80 years cause-effect, does it mean that it truly stops? It begins when I'm born and it ends when I die? No. In other words, one of the big reasons why there is a rejection of this continuity of life is because the person's mind is simply not comfortable with this idea of more than 80 or 90 years. So it's got to do with the person's comfort. It's got nothing to do with the facts. All Veda says is not only is this continuity of prarabdha, that means cause-effect relationship, true in this entire life, but it extends far beyond 80 or 90 years. Just because I can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Suppose you say your current prarabdha is, right, the current life, the current inclinations that you have. That's what I mean by prarabdha. Suppose you say it's given to you, right? And it was just given to me when I was born, right? No, I don't believe in this whole kind of past life, right? Reincarnation. So what does this mean? Then who gave you this personality? Who gives one the home to be in an abusive family with kind parents, with abusive siblings, with beautiful siblings, with a rich family, with a poor family? Who puts you inside a mosquito-ridden environment filled with malaria mosquitoes without any food, and someone else gets a chance to be born in a privileged family with all of the opportunities in the world? Who does that? Some person, some creator who just randomly picks who's gonna get what opportunity? Then how can I have trust in that kind of creator who randomly assigns someone to be an alcoholic, someone to be attracted to drugs, another person to be inquisitive and to want to know who God is, and the other person has no interest in God? Does God give you that attribute? Does he just randomly just pop that into different minds? It says, oh, okay, you're gonna be an alcoholic, you're gonna, have proclivities, inclinations for fighting and cheating, and you're gonna be honest person. If it was God, then how can I trust that creator to give me moksha? Because that means no matter what I do, he's just gonna randomly select equally who's gonna get moksha and who's not. You see this era of thinking, if you cannot find a prior cause, then the only other explanation is God gave me this personality. And as I said, it cannot be your parents, because your parents don't go and say, hey, Lorena, you're going to be inquisitive. You're going to love knowledge. You're going to focus on this hard every day. No one says this to you. And no one says to your other sibling, hey, you're going to be lazy. You're going to just not do anything. Just sit around and do nothing. Nobody says this. And yet we come with this personality. So it cannot be the influence of parents. There has to be an explanation. And this explanation is what this Sanchita wants to show. There is a continuity of personality. Okay. In Vedic astrology, yes, it's allegedly possible to tap into this prarabdha for this life and say, well, here's what is yet to kind of come into your life. I don't know the true validity of this, but in India, it happens to be, I mean, even here in the West, you know, astrology, it gives you some kind of reassurance. But suppose someone says, hey, you're going to live one more year. Is that really going to change your life? You're going to live one more year? Look at this. Suppose you're told you're going to live one more year. My question is, would you suddenly, to what extent would you change your life if you got told that you're going to live one more year? To what extent would you change your friends, to what you listen to what you don't listen to what you are interested in and not interested in? If the answer is nothing would change, then you have mastered your destiny. If the answer is, oh yeah, I would make a lot of changes, then that means there are some things that are being postponed and not addressed. So these are the things to work with. Hopefully, the ideal answer is, I would not change one thing. I would do exactly the same what's already being done, hang around with the exact same people, go to the same classes, look at the same knowledge, have the same kind of thoughts. Nothing would change. So this is a question to be asked, whether one's really living their calling, whether their purpose is there. So why does a person come into this life?
Evolution, spiritual evolution, to learn lessons and become.
Of course, this is all part of being born, but it's not the cause of being born. Ignorance. It is. So Nagesh said ignorance. The next question is, what does it mean to say ignorance gives you this body? What really gives you this body? Go back to the Sanchita, that pot. What's inside the pot? A lot of steam. Okay. And that steam constantly has to release pressure. Every life, it releases pressure for 80 years, another life, 80 years, maybe 90 years, whatever. As long as the I is put inside that pot, then I get born. You see? And who's this I that gets born? As David says, the causal body, that Sanchita, those inclinations, that person who is a doer, who is there to enjoy, who's there to do things and, you know, work things out and find happiness. And thus, that means that if you're born in this life, then whoever that person was in the past life, what can we infer about that person?
That they were ignorant, that they hadn't realized themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So in other words, we can infer that whoever that person is, their I was still placed in, I am this doer, I am here to work things out and learn and, you know, go through a spiritual journey and, you know, kind of like find happiness, and therefore they haven't gone through this teaching. What's the greatest punya you can get? You already got it. To be able to listen to these words and think, to have a human body, that's the greatest punyam. Now you have two choices. You can use this greatest punyam to become a celebrity or become someone, which is okay, it's up to you. Or you can use it for what it's really intended for, which is to recognize I have no connection to this Sanchita, and therefore this process of rebirth stops, because you need Sanchita karma to give you a new body. If I understand I am that which is invariable, which is attributeless, which has no Sanchita because it's attributeless, then there's no possibility for me, consciousness, to have another body. So when it comes to a wise person, what does it say here? Bhogat eva kshaya. So even for a wise person, this prarabdha only gets exhausted when it is fully exhausted. So however many years that is to be, only then this prarabdha gets exhausted. Because look at this, suppose moksha meant instantly the body dies. Who would want to pursue moksha? Like the moment you realize the truth, instantly you drop dead. That would be the scariest event ever. Nobody would be, in fact, you will be doing everything not to understand this knowledge because we're not ready, right? We're still, our identity is in the body. And therefore to say that my body is going to end, no, thank you. So that's the first reason why a jnani doesn't collapse upon recognizing the knowledge. The second is because you get to enjoy the vision of oneness for one last life. You get to enjoy finally, since beginningless births, you get to see that, hey, all that is here is Ishvara, who I am not apart from, and our truth is Sat and Chit. For one last life, you get to enjoy the universe, forms, people, animals, food, now knowing that there is no contradiction between myself, the world, and God. There is one reality manifesting as many. And the third reason why a jnani doesn't die is because if he or she were to die, then this tradition could not go on. You need someone who's in touch with the reality to expound the reality accurately for other desirous adhikaris. And you cannot hear the truth from someone who is not established in the truth. It just doesn't work. It doesn't rub off. And therefore, all of these three reasons are required why the jnani continues their life. Okay. Now, the question is, what happens to sanchita of a wise person? Remember what we said about sanchita karma? It's like a pot with infinite steam that always gives off and produces a new body. So, and sanchita, when it gives steam off, when it gives this, this inclination, these proclivities, these samskaras, and produce a new body, as long as that sanchita is true, a new body will come. So what happens for that sanchita for a wise person? Sanchitam karma brahma eva, and so on. To whom does sanchita belong?
The ignorant person born.
Who does actions into this world so they can enjoy themselves naturally. Nobody wants to suffer, so they can attain accomplishments and exercise their desires. And every time they innocently put out some action, whether it's a vice or a virtue, it doesn't matter. It produces a consequence, and this consequence is called agami. And where does agami go into? Sanchita. And wherever there's sanchita, it always has a need to release this pressure. The moment the physical body dies, it releases this pressure. So the question is, for whom is sanchita for? For the doer who has not ascertained their nature, and that doer has a need to do things for the sake of happiness. And every time they do something, new results, new consequences fill up their sanchita, and therefore that ensures a new section, a new body of steam will indeed be released next time round with new inclinations, new proclivities, according to the kind of life they have lived. Now, this sanchita is negated for the wise person. How so? To whom does sanchita belong? Does it belong to awareness? It belongs to the individual. When I say individual, what specifically am I referring to?
Jiva.
The jiva, which includes the physical body and the sukshma sharira, the subtle body. So we have already gone through the logic, how I cannot be the physical body, nor how consciousness cannot be the physical body, nor the mind. We literally did the logic of this, I think, for the mind, maybe last session, and for the body, we certainly did that too. So by ascertaining that I am not this individual, then automatically, what have I also disowned? Whatever is attached to this individual, which is sanchita. Sanchita is nothing but causal body, by the way. Sanchita just means section of proclivities and inclinations, which are in the causal body. And it's not a place body. There's no causal body floating. It's just a name to kind of give it some reality. So don't think of these places out there floating out there in the sky. The moment you shift your identity, when I say you, the buddhi, the moment the buddhi recognizes that the individual is not the buddhi, but the real self is that which illumines this buddhi, that which lights up this buddhi, that lights up all of the inclinations and lights up the mind, lights up the thinking, lights up everything. That's the real self. The moment that knowledge takes place, instantly you have disowned Sanchita karma. And as we said, this moment, this thought is called Akanda Akara Vritti. I described this in the last session. So just to give you some metaphor, imagine it like this. Suppose we have a man who is married to 3 wives. The oldest wife is called Miss Sanchita wife, or Mrs., not Miss, Mrs. Sanchita wife. The one in the middle is called Miss Prarabdha wife, and the newest wife is called Miss Agami wife. Okay, do you know why the newest one is called Agami? Because Agami is that which comes right after you do something now, so it's the newest wife. Why is the wife in the middle Prarabdha? Because for one life. So the Agami is new, Prarabdha is only about 80 years. And what about this old wife who's Sanchita, Mrs. Sanchita? She's since beginningless time. Now, who is going to annoy the husband the most? Well, that depends, right? But okay, who's going to know I don't even know if this is a valid question now. Who's going to understand the husband the least? Maybe the Agami wife, right? Who's going to have most loyalty and support the husband no matter what he goes through? The Sanchita wife, okay? Because she's been with him since beginningless time. So therefore, she doesn't allow him to go anywhere. She's always got her eye on him. Are you going there? No, it's okay. I'll follow you because I'm your loyal companion. So what happens now when the husband dies? What happens to the 3 wives? When there's no more owner of the 3 wives? They all gain the exact same name, widows. They're all disowned at once. It's not like the Agami wife has more special privileges than the Sanchita wife. They all take equal status. Agami takes equal status to Prarabdha. Prarabdha takes equal status to Sanchita. They're all disowned like that because there's no owner. Okay. And one thing I just want to mention is there's this notion that a wise person can choose when to come back next life. I think maybe we've heard this in some traditions, that a wise person can come back to sort of save humanity from suffering. And see, this is not possible because the wise fella, the jnani, that sense that I'm an individual, it's completely gone. In other words, to release that idea, that notion that I'm an individual means I'm not born. I was never born. So if I was never born, that is what awareness is, that which is unborn. Then how can awareness be reborn next time around? You see this contradiction? So there's no question of a wise person saying, you know, I'm now enlightened, I'm going to come back and, you know, save humanity from suffering. And I'm just going to, I'm going to do this. There's no question of coming back because awareness cannot come back. The only thing that can come back is a body and a mind. The second reason is because when you disown Sanchita, then there's no mechanism to give you back a new body. There's no pressure anymore. In fact, in the Vedas, that one who is not born from Sanchita karma is called Avatara. Everyone else that is born from Sanchita karma. And Avatara has no Sanchita. Avatara, what is an avatara? That one who comes into this world with a body and a mind to do a certain work, to do a certain purpose in a culture for a period of time to inculcate and revive the notions of what is righteous and what is not right. And they live to such an extent that they make an impact in that culture at that time, at that place. And then they leave the world. And they have usually a lot of impact because of their clarity, of their teachings and their charm. And for that reason, we have avatars. We don't need avatars anymore because if someone were to be an avatara, would they even be recognized in today's world? Likely not, because the world is a lot more complex. You only need an avatara when you're at the beginning stages of civilization, when you need clarity in terms of what is the right way to live and how do I restart my devotion for something much higher than just woman and gold and wealth and so on. So an avatara is required in the early stages of civilization. But the moment we developed our civilization and we started to kind of have communication, we don't need an avatara anymore. So this is just an order, and by this order, an avatara comes.
What about the Kalki, who's predicted to come as an avatar?
I heard that.
Think-
Oh yeah, Kalki. What about Kalki?
Mm.
I don't know. See, we cannot even predict what's going to happen tomorrow. Then what to say of predicting, what's going to happen next generation time around? So I don't know, where's this coming from? What is it a belief? Is it on basis of what graspable or logical evidence is there to support and to back up one's alleged claims that an avatara is going to come? And whoever is saying that is pertinent. Who is pertinent? Kalki is pertinent, I believe, to the Indian culture, I think. So whatever that culture has, right, in their beliefs is going to make that claim. Some different culture is not even going to make that claim because they're from a different time, different place, different background. So again, we can make constant. I've just read the stats of those who made doomsday prophecies. 99.9% in the last 40 years. Someone did an analysis of all of the prophecies that were done by priests, by people of high authority status. None came true. Absolutely none came true. And yet, when they make these prophecies, they are totally convinced. And there's always a social proof factor because people want to believe. There's always a social proof factor that comes along and gives it more fuel. And so it fuels this up even more. And you say, well, if there's 10,000 people believing this, it is definitely true. So this is another factor that potentially can influence these predictions that are yet to come. Also, see, to say that you will come back like next life and save people, it can be sort of it's an ambitious goal, no doubt. But has any wise person ever stopped violence in this world or stopped wars? Whatever impact a wise person has, that impact is canceled out as if nothing happened in only 50 years from now. No matter how many times you try to save this world or stop violence, it has no impact whatsoever. At the same time, it does affect, of course, the mentality of the people, but more or less, how many are actually going to hear about that impact? Very few. So no matter whether you come back or not, but suppose you come back, you're not going to save the world. It's impossible because the world doesn't want to be saved. The person, you may want to save the world, but you want to save the world how? By bringing peace. Does a person who's not in peace, do they want peace? Because for them, peace is a totally different idea. Peace is about, now we're going political, right? I don't want this person to be the president. I want this person to be the president. So there's always a disagreement who is right and who is wrong. So to try to save the world, you're now going right into the politics of the whole matter. And politics has no ending. It's just a back and forth. Okay. So now what happens to Jnani's Agami karma? So what is Agami karma? All of the unseen actions done by the wise person. So Agami karma api jnanena nashyati. So what happens to Agami karma? At the time of death, this Agami joins the Sanchita. But the Jnani has disowned the entire Sanchita. Therefore, whatever their body has done in this life is also disowned automatically. So this means even if a Jnani does wise things and saves the world and provides support and saves people, they cannot get a new body because all of their Agami went into Sanchita, but Sanchita I am not. I am free of Sanchita. Therefore, there is no, you cannot get a new body even if you do good things in this world. Even if you do vices, which is likely not going to happen. But even either way, you can't get a new body. And he uses an imagery. It says, Nalini Dalagata Jalavat. So just as a lotus leaf can be dipped inside dirty water, when the lotus leaf comes out, all of that dirty water falls away. The lotus leaf remains unaffected. But suppose holy water, pure, clean water falls on that lotus leaf. What's going to happen? That same water, no matter how clean or dirty, is going to rub right off that lotus leaf. In that same manner, whether the jnani's actions are papa or punya, it doesn't touch the wise person, because I have disowned sanchita karma. There's no more mechanism to give me a new body. Now, where does jnani's agami go then? Who gets jnani's agami karma? Because you can't just disown it, it has to go somewhere. So all of those good actions that a jnani has done, and all of those accidentally unwise actions that a wise person has done, to whom does that go to? Let's see. Kincha ye jnaninam stuvanti. This is the next verse. Okay. So where does a wise person's actions, wise actions go? And to whom? To all of those who look up to the wise person, who praise the wise person, and who help him or her. Why? This is common sense. If you're listening to someone that's educated, to someone that has taken time to clean up their mind, to work out their reality, to inquire into the reality, if you're listening to them, if you're modeling them, then it's pretty common sense you're going to benefit a lot from their knowledge. Okay, so this is why we need a teacher, because they've already done the hard work and the thoughtfulness and worked out these scriptures. And what is one of the greatest punyams that anyone can get? The greatest punyam that you can get and give. It is to take the person from mortality to immortality. And this is what wise people, this is what swamis do, this is what teachers do. So technically, who's receiving the greatest punyam in the world? All of those who are teaching the scriptures, who are taking the person out, because you're giving the person limitlessness. Therefore, what is your punyam? It is limitlessness back. But because it's not going to me awareness, where is it going? Sanchita karma. That means I cannot receive punyam nor papam. Awareness cannot receive punyam nor papam. So even if you save everyone from mortality to immortality, none of this goes to the wise person. It goes to sanchita, but I am not a sanchita. To whom does the wise person's punyam go? To the students, to those who praise, those who learn from him or her. And what about jnani's papam? To all of their vices, to whom does that go to? To those who criticize him or her, to those who show hatred, to those who inflict pain. In Ramayana, there were Rakshasas who were bothering the rishis, and they wanted Rama to help because they couldn't do their rituals. And what does the Rama represent in this example when Rama actually sorted them out? The Lord, because Rama stands for the Lord. And so therefore, just reflective of this verse, those who inflict pain on the wise people, eventually Lord will catch up to them and will give them all of the papam that they deserve. Now the question is, why would someone inflict pain or criticize a wise person despite them doing the greatest service on earth, despite them sacrificing their there's no sacrifice, because how can awareness sacrifice? Despite them truly just offering their body, their mind to help out, they may not even ask for anything back. Why would someone criticize that one? It's really strange. Because you need to be at the same level as that person to appreciate what they're doing. If you go and talk to suppose you're philosophical in nature, and you go and talk to someone in a car show, are they going to listen to your philosophy? They want to hear about V8, man. What kind of an engine do you have, right? So what are they going to say? Get out of here, you fool. What happened? They criticized you. Why? Because you found yourself in the wrong niche group. So this is an indicator. Hey, go and find proper friends, right? So you have to be mature enough to understand that what is being taught is actually the greatest service that any human being can receive. Knowing that only then I can value the teacher. I can value what the Swamis are doing. I can value what Shankara has done. I can value what these anonymous rishis are doing. How many critics did Krishna have? So even if a Lord of the universe incarnate can have critics and be disliked, and Krishna was very charming, intelligent, and discerning. I mean, the highest qualities of a human being, that was Krishna. And even him was criticized by those who could not see the value of Krishna. So then what to say about nowadays when this whole violence and this comments online, anonymous comments, it's almost normalized, just go on a forum, register whatever username and just post something and be safe. So you can see how and why this, it's unfortunate. So it's not the teachers. For the most part, it is people who simply are projecting their own notions onto the teachers, onto those who are doing this work. And therefore, but it's okay, because to whom does Jnani's papam go to? Not that they have a lot of papam. To those, when they get reborn, they will have that consequence. Okay. And finally, what is the benefit of understanding that all that is here is Ishvara? Tatha chatmavit. Okay, so what is the result of self-knowledge? Atmavit samsarvam tirtva. So that means one who has understood has crossed the ocean of samsara. What does crossing over mean? What is there to cross over here if there's only one? That means cognitively, I have understood this world has no absolute reality. It is dependent reality on one and the same truth. That means cognitively, I have falsified the absolute reality of this world. This is the difference between ignorance and knowledge. Ignorance takes this world, it's my home, it's absolute, let's settle here, let's build a home, I am very comfortable. The wise person understands this world is practical, it is lovely, but at the same time, the reality is not absolute. The absolute reality is Ishvara, which has no reality apart from Sat and Chit. Brahma Ananda Iha Prapnoti. So that one gains the comfort, the freedom of knowing Brahman, the knowing the truth. In other words, the Jnani discovers limitlessness. I was that all along, and I am even that right now. That means I am absolutely existing. Everything else is mithya. I am satyam. Everything else is mithya. The whole universe depends on me. Now, when I say Maya, I'm not talking about the body that said that. Behind that statement, what's included in reality, including the person who just said this? Who am I? The invariable presence, the content of the person who is saying, I am the reality. Okay, so that person too is included in the reality. So you never exclude yourself. Otherwise, that's still a split there in understanding. It means that moksha doesn't mean you cease to exist. It means you gain everything. It's not like, oh, I cease to exist. No, you just gain, you understand I'm much more than just this body. It's not like you lose this body. You don't lose anything. Where is anything? Where is the content? Where is the upadi going to go when the whole thing is you? So moksha is not losing. It is gaining much more than I thought I was. I thought I was this much. I've gained this much. I'm comfortable. Now I gain the whole universe. And this is backed up by Tarati Shokam Atmavit. It's a statement taken straight from Chandogya Upanishad. That means the knower of the self permanently crosses over life of limitation, inadequacy, lack. All of this is, crossed over by cognitively understanding life does not belong to me, it belongs to Andre. The body doesn't belong to me, it belongs to this person. And this is interesting, a jnani casts off the body wherever the body dies, it doesn't matter for a wise person. So often in the Vedic tradition, we have this idea that how you die, when you die. So for example, if you die during the day, that's much better than during the night. If you die during the Uttarayana, that's between January and July, it's much better than the other months. If you die during the Shukla Paksha, That's when that moment when the moon is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and full moon. That period when the moon becomes bigger and bigger and bigger is called Shukla Paksha. So you want to die during that period, by the way. So just, postpone your death. So these are all ideas in the Vedic culture. Maybe they have some truth, I don't know. That how you die and when you die indicates potentially the kind of life that you will live. Potentially, not definitely, but it indicates that you will live more kind of a better birth. There's also this idea that if you die in a home that is not caring, people around you, they don't know you, you die kind of like in a bad situation, that also affects your next birth, because obviously your thoughts are going to be affected by the environment. So whereas and there's also an idea that if you die in Varanasi, is much better than if you die elsewhere. It says Kashi. Kashi is just a city inside Varanasi. So if you drop your body by the Ganga River in Varanasi, then whatever happens to that jiva afterwards is going to have a much more successful life, slightly better life than if you die in a dog eater's house. Who's a dog eater? A filthy. It's an indication for the worst of the men, like just the uncaring people around you, just a dirty place. Whereas for a jnani, it doesn't matter how their body dies. Your body can be pumped up with morphine. It can be sitting in cross-legged. It can be alone. A comet can fall on you. A bullet can go through your head. How many other ways are there to die? You can get really creative, right? A person can drown. They can get a heart attack. They can choke. They can whatever and however a wise person's body dies, and for however long it takes, it makes no difference, because the body is not I, the karmas attached to the body are not I, none of this belongs to me. So this means it doesn't matter how a wise person dies, or when they die, or what time of the day they die. They can die however it is, and this is wonderful. This means one can release this worry of, oh, I need to die. I don't want any, kind of drugs in my system because I want to die naturally. It's going to affect my death. This is a thinking of someone whose eye is still in their body. Okay? It doesn't matter how or when the wise person dies, they are free forever. Okay, and finally, jnana samprapti samaye mukhyaha. So the moment the knowledge takes place, the person is free from their sanchita forever. And what happens upon moksha? The world doesn't change. Nothing changes whatsoever. Why? Because there's two kinds of superimpositions. Nirupadika apyasa, and there's sopadika apyasa. Now, when a person who sees a snake, only they see a snake, you don't see a snake. So this means when it's a personal issue, and you remove that personal issue, for example, someone tells you gossip about a person, and you have a certain impression about them, but suppose you hear the truth about that person, is your experience going to change about that person now? Absolutely, because you thought a moment ago they're a bad person, they're a liar, but now you've heard the truth, and instantly what happens? The false notion fell away, but your experience completely changed. Moksha is not like this, because there's another kind of apyasa. Apyasa means superimposition. Just like I said, sunset. When I discover that there is no actual sunset and sunrise, and I discover this body is actually not the final reality, it's dependent, the body remains exactly the same. This means it's a sopadika apyasa. Sopadika means the experience remains exactly the same. The emotions remain the same, the thoughts remain the same, the body continues to age in the same way as anyone else, but the notion is knocked off. So the difference is nirupadika apyasa is like snake and rope. When the notion is knocked off, that it's not a snake, it's a rope, what happens? The notion is knocked off, but also the experience changes entirely. You're no longer afraid. It's not a snake, it's just a rope. Okay? Sopadika apyasa is the notion is knocked off. What kind of notion? That this world has absolute reality, that this person is I. That's knocked off. But the experience of the person and limitation is exactly the same. This is very important because we think that moksha means I suddenly experience myself as the limitless one. No, there's still an upadi that is as though confining the space. You still have this limitation to carry. For how long? For, I don't know, 20, 30 more years. Therefore, if I were to give you an order of how this whole process takes place, what happens first? Growing clarity, little by little, hearing from different angles, okay? From different angles, we hear and we get more of the model, and it becomes fuller and fuller and fuller. And so the model of reality, keeping with the reality, there's a perfect match between what you understand and how reality is. There's a perfect match. When there's a perfect match, we call this akanda akara vritti. So growing clarity leads to akanda akara vritti. That means it removes one last notion that was causing this I sense to objectify everything except itself. When akanda akara vritti takes place, what happens? The I sense is also able to objectify itself also. This is moksha. Okay? And therefore, in the presence of the invariable one, which is I, there is also the constant changes of the person. That means this person called Andre is just moving his arms, talking, but it's got nothing to do with me right now, which is the same me that is lighting up your mind in this very second. So that is clear. So growing clarity, akanda akara vritti, and from then on, you can never know yourself more or less. No one can ever say something to say, oh, now I understand myself more. Or, wow, I didn't quite understand. It's permanent. Once you understand the reality, no teacher can ever help you to clarify things more. That's it. It's permanent. The only change that you can make is in respect to skills. You can still learn new skills. You can still learn how to paint, how to get a new job, and all of these things. However, what's important is even after moksha takes place, afflictions continues. Mental afflictions continue, physical afflictions continue. Why? Because you have no control over the upadi. You have no control over aging, over ups and downs, over your emotions. It is not your creation, unlike that snake. Snake is your creation. When that goes, it gives you a different experience. When the notion of this goes, this still remains. When the notion that this is real goes, it still remains. Therefore, it continues to give you the same experience as before. Whereas if it's a snake, when the snake goes, hey, it's not there anymore. Therefore, it gives you a totally different experience. Do you see this distinction? Okay. Therefore, what happens is once the body is completely dropped, once this upadi is completely dropped, then you have what's called total mukti. This is called videha mukti. Videha mukti means now, while alive, the wise person knows I am free of all limitations. It's knowledge. Careful, it is cognitive knowledge. It's keeping with the truth. You only experience yourself as the limitless one when this upadi goes away. Because as long as Maya upadi is giving you this limitation, there is no way you can experience yourself limitless because you are as though limited within this upadi. So only when the body is dropped for the wise person, only then it's not only knowledge, it's also direct experience. Okay? Because the upadi is no more limiting me, the limitless one, as though to be in this much of a confinement. Okay? And therefore, never again does this wise person come back. They remain in and through all things as Brahman and Ishvara. And you are now the free one in whom the entire universe abides, and whose Maya still keeps on building this world for other jivas to come out of this cycle of rebirth, just like all of those before us, which have attained moksha, in whom are we now in? We are in them. The one being who is abiding as the self, we are now abiding. We, the body. What is the same between you and that one who is liberated completely? Invariable I am, I am, I am. So as long as you have Maya upadi, what's on top of this I am, this confinement. When this confinement ends, then I am without any confinement whatsoever. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti